Hello everyone, this is Timothy Vilgiotti. You are listening to Rivers of the Mind, Season 2, Episode 12, entitled Tcinti. Thank you very much for listening to Rivers of the Mind. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. If this is your first episode, I'd encourage you to, if you don't want to listen through all of Season 1, to start at either the beginning of Season 2 or with Season 1.5, which is a condensed version of Rivers of the Mind Season 1 from an outside perspective. Also, before we begin, I'd like to just include a disclaimer that Rivers of the Mind is not meant to condone or promote the use of drugs, and any resemblance to actual events in Rivers of the Mind is completely coincidental. Anyway, with all of that said, please enjoy Season 2, Episode 12 of Rivers of the Mind, entitled Tcinti.
Trembling, we left the house, headed towards the woods. The language was difficult to grasp. It eludes me, but deep within the packets of outwardly innocuous gum loomed something great and powerful. My hands began to vibrate as I held onto the package. What little of the plant remained in that box locks into something greater, something universal. This was it. This is it. Is. Somewhere in here is the key to defeating the white flowers and saving the world. As vast as it seemed, it is difficult to understand. All of my attempts to learn the language held within result in evasion. I hear the faintest sounds of screeching and moaning, like wails. The more I press into it, the more noise it seems to make. I'm making it upset.
Megan, are you okay?
Yeah, I start to say before my jaw clamps shut. A sensation glides up my back, a feeling like a ceramic mug rubbing against skin through thick winter clothing. It's a dull warmth, a slightly sickening electricity creeping up my spine. All at once, all pasts and presents and features that my mind can fathom tie themselves into a single transcendental moment, unfixed in time. My thoughts, my impressions, my feelings, my ideas, my attachments all come into full view, peeling themselves apart like hundreds of overlapping transparent frames to reveal themselves as separate, interdependent components. I grow increasingly aware of every sensation in my body of which I might have been otherwise unconscious. The beating of my heart or the churning of my stomach no longer feel like distant actions from my conscious mind, but instead become felt as intimately connected with every aspect of my thinking and feeling brain. I glance at my brother and my heart starts to palpitate with fear. He is trying to speak to me, but I can't hear what he's saying. I study him closely and see a faint white screen intervening between us, a gossamer curtain encircling and caging me. I trace it upwards until I see the curtain stretching on for what seems like miles into the sky. It glows with a gentle light, trembling in the wind like a jellyfish drifting in a current. All at once, the world outside disappears and my feet lift off the ground. I rise. And I rise, and I rise, until eventually I remembered I wasn't rising at all, but falling, careening down what looked like a blank white elevator shaft with 5 translucent sides. At the base, a great white flower spins in hypnotic circles, waiting for me. Tcinti. Shooting through the white flower, I feel my body crumble into a tiny sphere, emerging from the dirt in the shape of a tiny sprout. I grow sinewy legs and arms. My face warps around in the shape of a flower bud until it comes unfurled, and I grow and grow and bloom. until I, as a plant, uproot my feet and peel off my damp green skin to reveal a person trapped within, covered in goop. Towering hundreds of feet above my head, I see him, Tcinti, a massive humanoid plant. 2 colossal leaves flow behind him like wings as he stands regally between immense hills pockmarked with ancient, burned-out settlements with faint candles in their asymmetric windows. Smoke that smells like honey and burning hickory drifts from the cities and between Tcinti's terrible wooden teeth. The air around us feels humid and smoky. The sensation I had felt passing over me now covers my whole body. I feel like I could have been laying upwards in a pool, looking at some kind of strange apocalyptic hallucination. Tcinti flaps its wings, and their awesome wind flings me to the ground. The trees around us shiver. I kneel, almost knowing without words that I need to kneel. But I cannot take my eyes away from Tcinti. I cannot stop looking. He lands in front of me, shaking the ground. Tcinti's eyes, shaped like long white flowers, extend from his skull as searchlights. They dance around the valley in which we found ourselves. When they pass over me, they grant me a brief, momentary glimpse into another world, a world just like this one. His eyes, though apparently solid objects, grow or shrink exactly like the beams of flashlights. Trying to understand them, how they work, how he works, how any of this works, makes the English part of my brain crumble until it succumbs to stupefied and overstimulated awe. As he approaches, I begin to study his hands, if that is indeed what they are. Long bushels with hundreds of squirming flowers, each one pouring out dense smoke. Kneeling down to get a closer look at me, his mouth opens and from within it comes the sounds of gnarled, crumbling steel. A seething and primal anger comes from Tcinti as he rises back up into the sky. I struggle to learn his language. My efforts to do so seem only to confuse him. There is none of the easy chaos I experience with English, only a strange and foreign order, tonalities that span dimensions and sounds, smells and colors as much as syllables. He reaches down, and his thousands of fingers wrap themselves around me, pulling me upwards to inspect me more carefully. My lungs fill with tobacco smoke and I start coughing. I do not stop coughing. I cannot stop coughing. His searchlight eyes weave their way around my head, and my eyes, my legs, my arms.
You are not one of the tricksters, but you are not the pure mushroom. Identify yourself, spirit, or be devoured.
My name is Megan. I was...
Megan. And who taught you to speak the language of the tricksters? Or that of us, the Almighty?
I was blessed by the pure mushrooms when they sacrificed themselves to banish the beyond from the fourth world. They gave me...
the gift of language. Of course. But the pure mushrooms gave the gift of language to the bald monkeys a long time ago. How did you learn to speak these languages? They are not for the bald monkeys to know.
The mushrooms did it to me. The beyond came into the fourth world again. And now
Well, your story amuses me. It seems that if the pure mushrooms were to have chosen you, they would have warned you about the tricksters, warned you not to speak or speak of their wicked language, especially not in the presence of the Almighty. Now, tell me the truth, or suffer the consequences of
the tricksters, the white flowers. They've attacked my friend, and I've tried to use the gift of language to get him out, but I can't. I talked to my ancestor, and she told me to ask you for help. I think.
I see. The tricksters have attacked your friend. And why did his healers not bring him to me? Are the healers your people so unpracticed as to not know to do such a thing immediately?
Well, the thing is, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble trying to explain it.
Don't worry. You're doing fine for a beginner. Your accent is good too. Just keep working on your tones. But it is difficult to fathom the stupidity that now meets my ears. Continue with your attempted evil explanation.
See, whatever attacked my friend, it was another person. A witch, I guess you could say. He communed with the tricksters just as a hole opened in the beyond, loosening him from time and binding him to their power forever. He attacked my friend, since my friend has the powers of the Old One, and he's used my friend's brain to kill.
Silence, young.
A raging wind tears through the sky. It parts the clouds of lingering smoke and makes the towering figure who now holds me in his palm flinch. Immediately, the one who had greeted me kneels before an even larger creature, the same in appearance, but tall enough that I could not see nor fathom the top of him.
I have heard of the warlock of whom she speaks. He is wicked, wishing to topple all nations and worlds across this universe and to make them his slaves. Permit her to enter the fortress and to speak on behalf of her people. This nation of Megan, as she calls it. Please forgive me, though forgiveness is needed. It is wise to be always on your guard for the work of the enemy. They have tried many similar devices, some even stranger than what you have just seen. Go now and sing to the great high waters, Yashmaster.
He sets me down, and I am left alone before the giant, whose searchlight eyes peer down like tiny stars from the distance and grow ever closer. My feet lift off of the ground, up into his eyes. I rise, and I rise, and I rise until the whites of his eyes were all I could see. And I forgot I was rising at all. Or rather, I started to feel the center of gravity shift until it seemed like I'd started falling, plummeting into the ground and being reborn again as a flower.
What is your name?
It's... my people are...
You have taken the name of your people. Interesting. The bald monkeys never cease to amaze me with their eccentricities. My name is...
All around me stretched thick tile walls made of impeccably smooth, black stone with tiny glistening crystals concealed within. The smell of smoke now permeates the air, rising up into the vaulted ceiling of an infinite castle. Slightly shorter but still larger than most houses, the tobacco creature faces me to welcome me into the fortress of the Almighty One. The beating heart of an interdimensional kingdom. To speak the language of tobacco was to enter into this home, to be part of a universal conversation, to be connected with the present moment in all of its multiplicities, to forget the past and the future, and become sharpened like a sword against spiritual darkness, to pour with radioactive smoke, to drown out the passing of time like an avalanche, rendering it still, sacred and tightly held in Tcinti's icy grip. My stomach shakes as I stumble through the world. My feet take step upon step, almost against my will. Tcinti gestures here and there, pointing out monuments and buildings that line our strange path. He refers to a spiral spike driven down into the earth miles high, lined with branches and dizzy flowers to tell me about the time the beyond drowned an entire continent. He points to the jagged textures of a frozen asymmetrical splash of water and says that they hold the epic poem of a time before the tricksters and the Almighty became enemies. He stops at an empty field marked by a single dusty stone, and he tells me without speaking of the many who have died there.
This warlock who attacks your friend, he has chosen an unwise ally. The tricksters are a fallen nation, long having abandoned protection of the earth in pursuit of control over the universe. Much of the second dimension and the first 6 realms of the third dimension have already fallen to them, except for those domains protected by our fortress. Your friend, if he has been blessed by the Old One, would make a useful tool for them to take the fourth world, and to extend their reach into the fifth. This warlock probably imagines that he is the one in control. He is not. But now that you have their language, they will be able to see into your mind. You must let us remove it from you before we can go further.
No! My lips shout against my will, giving voice to something concealed inside me. Don't!
You have revealed yourself, trickster.
Rapidly, the ground beneath my feet rises in tiny whirlwinds and clings to me. I see suddenly that this is not Earth at all, but that I'm walking on a surface made of gases and smoke. A screaming erupts from a remote corner of my mind as the tobacco spirit extends his hand toward me, row upon row of long white flowers open wide,
pouring out a biting cold air. Collapsed to the ground. The world began to spin. Had I lost consciousness?
Is forbidden beyond the gate. To learn the language of the Almighty, one cannot know the language of the tricksters.
In contrast to the dull blacks and greys of the fortress's outer shell, we were now in a gleaming white city, overgrown with ivy, smelling strongly of tobacco, pepper, and simmering eggplant. My hands now trembled, my heart fluttered, and my skin started to grow clammy. Vines oozed from my pores, and smoke came out of my mouth. A new language entered my brain.
Perhaps one day there will be peace, as the tricksters will swear off their evil war. But until then, there can be no peace.
My body ballooned until the once gigantic city seemed to be of normal size and proportions. Theological and surreal scenery, buildings that seemed to drip into one another, made of incoherent curves and spindly dendrites, now made perfect sense to me.
We will give you our language, so long as you swear to uphold our laws.
All at once, I became conscious of my body in the outer fortress, as well as the entrance hall, and even in the real world. My brother had led me into Cameron's porch, where he had grown increasingly worried that he needed to do something. I sat there, mumbling in what seemed to be incoherent growls, my eyes blankly looking forward with terror.
Our laws are as follows: to care for and protect every level of the earth, to sing to the sacred waters of the upper sky, to keep them free from dark spirits, to kill only those who are impotent or tricksters, to not reveal the location of our fortress. Do you accept?
Violence of the language that I had learned felt in its own way more exacting than anything I had experienced. It seemed a dangerous thing to invite into my own mind in its own right, but I needed to save John. I needed to keep that thing from killing all of us. Yes.
Very well. Agent of the Monkey Nation of Megan, I declare you servant and slave of the Almighty, soldier of the Nightshade, bearer of our language against the trickster and their warlock.
The tobacco spirit reached into a fountain filled with a thick sap and pressed it against my head. My body dissolved. An ecstatic and protective rage filled the deepest corners of my soul as smoke poured skyward. The city seemed to sing, to cheer, although it visibly seemed indifferent to what we were doing. Within myself there now appeared other worlds, which cascaded inward like a nesting doll until they reached a level so small it could barely be imagined. These people, they were under siege. They did not so much believe their laws as they clung to them, providing the weak sense of stability through this war that kept the city, and the cities inside of the city, afloat in spite of the constant threat. I felt ashamed to have spoken the language of tricksters, to have brought it shamelessly into their world. The tobacco spirit turned for us to leave. The miraculously strange city, with its immense stone sky and thundering aggression, faded past us building by building. The road seemed to grow wider as I shrunk down, falling back through my shells until I slid from the porch onto the ground.
Megan, do you need, some water, or...
It worked.
Do you need me to take you back? It's almost 5 a.m. I have to work in an hour.
Turning myself over, I nodded.
Are you okay?
The world here in the English language felt like a dream. The tobacco language still expanded in my brain, filling it with a pulsing hot intensity. Yes, I am. My brother helped me up again.
Come on, you're gonna be fine.
Despite outward appearances, I was ready for battle. I had been inserted into a war, one which lasted for eons, spanning across dimensions. An invisible smoke poured from my nostrils. I was ready.
So I guess you can, see drugs or something? Or talk to them?
Languages. I see their languages.
Huh. What's it like?
What's what like?
You know, seeing languages.
Depends on the language.
What did tobacco look like?
Big.
Yeah? Like how big?
Bigger than a building, with hundreds of white flowers for hands that could turn into cannons. He lived in a city, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. These things are awfully hard to explain.
And, what about?
Are you gonna ask me about meth?
Yeah, meth.
Well, I don't know. If I close my eyes and I try to hear its language, I end up in this big field of grass. And there's something in the grass, but I can't see it. It's like a giant bug. You can tell it's a bug, even if you can't see it. The grass brushes against you, and you feel...
Fuck.
What?
Police! Those are real, right? I'm not hallucinating. They're really there.
6 cars with bright, flashing lights tailed us down the highway. Jacob pulled over, trembling. Armed soldiers emerged, surrounding the car. The road had been blocked off up ahead.
Hello, officer. How are you doing?
Out of the car. Now. Both of you.